Hello everybody and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today is going to be a little bit of a different video. We're going to be doing a history of makeup video in which I focus on Marilyn Monroe. Now, Marilyn Monroe, I haven't spoken about this much on my channel, but Marilyn Monroe has been like one of my favorite people in history for the longest time, ever since I was watching like her black and white movies, like just black and white movies in general from the 50s, the 60s. When I was like a little kid, I just was fascinated by her. I loved her, and I have done so much research on Marilyn over the years, and she really is such a fascinating figure, and she also is very much underestimated. She really went through so much in her life, and she died so tragically and so young that we almost didn't get to see many parts of her. We just saw the image that was projected to the general population, and we really didn't see much of the person that she really was. And she actually went through like a very tough childhood as well. She actually went through 11 foster homes. Like, just imagine that. She had a mother that struggled with a lot of health issues. She had a very tumultuous childhood, and that kind of transcended into her adult life because she struggled with a lot of anxiety and just insecurities. Like, I mean, this was like such a huge icon, but she really did struggle with herself and her self-image. And it's interesting because we are basically given so many different viewpoints and opinions of Marilyn and the person that she was. People seem to have very strong feelings when it comes to her. People seem to either have loved her or hated her. You see so many reports about how she was difficult, how she was a diva, how she was a drama queen, and how she would like not leave her dressing room. But then those close to her say that she really was like such a kind and hard-working person who really was so ambitious and really just wanted to be successful.
I would like to be a good actress. Mm-hmm. And it's not a matter of being on top, because I think some of the best actors and actresses perhaps aren't on the top. So that's not the thing.
No one came to her or handed anything to her. She started off in Hollywood as a model, and she basically had to earn everything that she got. She worked from the bottom to the top, and she worked really hard. And yeah, she didn't come out of her dressing room because she struggled with anxiety, and she was like she just really felt so alone all the time. And it's just really interesting to me to see like our portrayal of her versus the person that she really was. So I really do want to make this video not just about her makeup, not just about her appearance, not just about like the plastic surgery that she had. I want to talk about who she was, because I feel like that's what's lacking in a lot of videos like these that talk about like Marilyn Monroe's makeup, or like Marilyn Monroe herself. Like, we seem to see a lot of like who she was like on the outside, but we don't really see who she was like as a full rounded person. And of course, a lot of this video will be speculation because she is shrouded in so much mystery, and we can't necessarily know all the facts because her makeup artist, he passed in the 90s. She of course passed in like the very early stages of her life, and we don't really know. But with this video, I've done a lot of research. I've tried to be very thorough about looking at different sources, and I will have like links down below if you're interested in finding more information, because I will be just sort of like honestly skimming throughout this video because there is so much to cover. But if you want to see more about Marilyn and about her makeup and about her as a person, check out the info down below. I'll put as much information as possible in there. There are a whole bunch of interviews that I found. There are a whole bunch of like different clips and different articles that I found as well, so check them out down below. So Marilyn started off as Norma Jean, and she was of course like a very pretty, very attractive girl, but she actually did not start off, of course, looking like the iconic Marilyn that we know of. She did have to go through a variety of like just steps to achieve like the icon that we know of today. Now, she started off as a model, and then when she had her first screen test, she was introduced to her makeup artist, who was known as Allan Whitey Snyder, and he's referred to as Whitey. Now, he basically ended up being one of her closest friends and confidants. There's an interview that I found that was a shot of him, I think in the 80s or the 90s. I'm not clear as to when the interview was shot, but he did mention that she used to call him all the time because she really did feel so incredibly lonely.
She was a lonely girl all the way through, and not so much in the mornings, but many, many times at night. She'd call me in the middle of the night. She'd just want to talk to you. Talk to me, say, or anybody, you know, and she just wanted to talk, just nothing. Marilyn was such a perfectionist, she would drive herself so hard that she would get so wrapped up, and that's one of the things that led to the sleeping pills and things like this at night, because she would go home from the studio, and you work all day long and start early, and then go home like 6 o'clock at night, and right away she'd go to bed. I'd say, Marilyn, stay up for a while, you know, unwind, have a drink or do something, and get tired and take a couple of baths or do something, walk it around the street or anything. She's like, I gotta get my rest. So she'd take a pill and go to bed. Then she'd wake up about 10 o'clock in the evening and she'd say, oh, and she'd take another one or two or something like this, you know, and that's what led to those pill deals. And she wasn't taking them just to anything but relax. And she couldn't go on the set now and be dopey because you don't remember your lines, you don't do anything. So it would take us a time to get all organized and all dressed and everything else. And by the time we wasted 2 or 3 hours, well, she was in pretty good shape, you see. But that was a bad thing, and but it was just the way she'd work it. And she didn't mean to, but that's what happened all the time. You know?
You can really see how close that she was to him because there are pictures that I found that show her basically laughing and having fun and being so natural and unguarded. And these pictures are actually taken in between takes in various films because, as I said before, she struggled with a lot of nerves and a lot of tension. So whenever that would happen, he would basically take the camera, they would have a lot of fun, he would shoot some photos of her, and she would really just calm down and just transform. So like you see by these photos, she really seems to really trust him and she was really close with him. They were really the best of friends, to the point that she actually made a little bit of a running joke with him that if she died before him, she wanted him to do her makeup. And tragically, of course, when that did happen, he had to basically do the makeup of his friend, basically a friend and client, and it was kind of like a really traumatic experience for him. There are reports of the aftermath of her death. He was really struck by it and he wouldn't talk about it for years afterwards. So of course, Whitey and Marilyn constructed this beauty routine that was very lengthy, and it was a very elaborate routine because Marilyn actually started off in modeling, and in modeling they used to have like this pancake sort of makeup, which was like very thick, very heavy makeup, and that's what she was used to. But of course that didn't really work for the movie screen. So basically they developed certain tips and tricks that she was already aware of and that he brought to the table in order for them to create like the iconic sort of like Marilyn look that we know of today. I did a lot of research into her plastic surgery, and there seems to be a lot of rumors and a lot of sources contradict each other, but the two key procedures that she appears to have had done were her nose and her chin. Now in her chin, she appeared to have like a metal plate that was inserted into her chin to reduce the look of a double chin. So I don't really know much about plastic surgery, so I can't really tell you any of the details with too much confidence, but I'll put resources down below so you can get a better picture of what that entailed. But the plate was not necessarily something that was like altogether successful because she did have to massage the area and it wasn't something that was like altogether satisfactory for her. And the nose actually has had a lot of debate. People seem to think that, oh yes, she didn't have it, and then people say that she did have it. There have been some x-rays released, but I'm gonna go with the notion that she did have the nose surgery because there appears to have been a bump on her nose that they wanted to correct with the rhinoplasty. So with that, they basically corrected the nose, but that wasn't altogether successful, so she did end up having to remedy that with makeup, which we will get into momentarily. Marilyn herself was very fearful of breakouts, to the point that she used to wash her face many times a day. I've seen reports that she washed her face 4 to 5 times a day. I remember I saw a report, I can't remember where I saw it, so I'm not even sure if it's true or not, that she washed her face 20 times a day, which of course I don't even think is valid, but the point is she did wash her face several times a day, and that may have contributed to the fact that she herself had very dry skin. Now, there was a video that I saw by Refinery 29 in which they sent a reporter to her dermatologist's company, and they actually have like a full prescription of like the skincare that she was used and that was given to her by this dermatologist, who was named Erno Laszlo.
Erno Laszlo was a Hungarian dermatologist known for his bespoke treatments and products. Hollywood elite like Audrey Hepburn, Jackie O, and of course, Marilyn Monroe were all loyal patients.
Now, he had this prescription. There was a morning ritual, an evening before dressing ritual, a ritual for formal occasions, and an evening before retiring or going to bed. So this is a very, very detailed prescription. I will, of course, link the video down below if you want to hear more about the ritual itself and what it entailed. But Marilyn really did care a lot about her skincare, about her skin in general. She used a lot of moisturizers, including Nivea, Vaseline. Reports have said that she used coconut oil and olive oil. So she was very cognizant of the fact that moisturizing was key for her skin. And of course, this transferred into her makeup routine as well, to the point that Whitey actually started off with putting Vaseline on as a primer before her foundation, and this was meant to give her skin like this very beautiful, youthful glow that was supposed to really just coincide with the studio lights in order to make her look absolutely glowing and absolutely beautiful. So you can see in a lot of the photos that we have of Marilyn that she really has like this beautiful, glowing, luscious skin. She looks absolutely stunning. It was kind of hard for me to find the exact kind of foundation that she used, but it was very clear to me when I did look and when I did do a lot of research that she actually did not like to use a lot of powder or mattifying products, because as I said before, she was very into the luminosity of her skin and she really wanted to preserve that youthful appearance. So I did find several years ago a video made by Lisa Eldridge in which she really explains in detail the makeup routine that Marilyn adopted. So in that video, it is said that Marilyn Monroe liked a lot of Max Factor products, and Max Factor was actually a huge name in Hollywood, especially at that time, because he created a lot of very innovative formulas for that time period for Hollywood starlets. And basically they would put a foundation on top of the Vaseline that was on Marilyn's skin, and this foundation, combined with the fact that there was Vaseline used as a primer, really created this really soft focus look, which kind of blurred imperfections and made her face look so much more like soft focused and really beautiful under the studio lights. So with the eye look, they started out with a very white light base, which was applied on her eyelid from her eyelid to her brow area, and this was applied pretty much all over her eye area, very much into the inner corner and the eyelid, as well as the brow bone area, basically to give the illusion of a very bright, very wide open looking eye. Then on top of that, they had a shimmery white shadow, which would be applied strategically to the inner portion of her eye to really just open up that inner corner and really make it brighter. And the goal of the entire eye makeup was to create a very wide open, yet very sleepy, very sultry kind of eye look that also brightened the whites of the eyes. And that's why we really see a lot of like key tips and tricks that were applied to Marilyn to basically enhance her eyes in that manner. As I said before, there wasn't a lot of eyeshadow used on Marilyn's eyes, but what was used was a very light light kind of like taupish kind of brown, which would be inserted into her crease and just buffed out to really just give a slight contour to her eye and really add some more definition. Now, eyeliner, another thing which I found a lot of different opinions on. People seem to have like different ideas of what was used. I'm gonna go with Lisa Eldridge's report on this one, in which she says that Marilyn actually did use a brown pencil to line her eyes and to give that winged liner shape.
And contrary to popular belief, it wasn't a black liquid, it was a brown pencil. Also, it wasn't too thick. It never overpowered her look. So the liner traced all the way along the lashes, and then at the outer corner was lifted up and out, just like that.
This was meant to really just elongate her eye and just retain that really beautiful sleepy shape, because if you look at pictures of Norma Jean as she was like before like the iconic Marilyn kind of look came about, you really see that she had rather round eyes. But Whitey and Marilyn wanted to create this very sultry, this very seductive eye shape.
Marilyn always wore a half set of lashes. This enabled her to keep that really elongated and very almond looking shape. So you can see how the half set of lashes really starts to extend the line of the eyes.
Looking. So they had those half sets of lashes applied to the outer corners, and of course like this created this very beautiful sultry effect on her eyes. Now, another super fascinating tidbit that I found was the fact that Whitey actually had this little bit of a trick when it came to really just emphasizing the length and the weight of Marilyn's lashes.
Now, one of Whitey's big tricks on Marilyn's makeup was to draw a line under her eyes with a little bit of powder or a pencil, and this was meant to look like a shadow. And what happened was it went down from here to look like it was a shadow from the weight of her lashes. So although it looks often as if it is genuinely a shadow, when you look at some of the old pictures of Marilyn, on closer inspection you'll notice with different light you always see this incredible fake shadow that's been softly drawn in underneath. So you can see already before we put our mascara on the bottom that you're getting the impression that there is this really quite strong shadow being cast by the super long lashes on the top. One of the main things that Whitey wanted to achieve with Marilyn's makeup was to give her that really heart-shaped face. One of the things that helped to achieve this was her brows, which he drew on high and very arched, giving the feeling of space between the eyes and a more wide-set appearance.
So this is the type of a trick that I absolutely love. I've actually applied this trick for myself once or twice and I loved the effects of it. I'm not doing it today just because I did find out that this actually really looks very realistic when you have false lashes on. When you have really long, very beautiful lashes on, then applying this trick in your makeup routine can really make your lashes look that much more amazing. But when you just have mascara on, it kind of looks a little bit like a little bit too manufactured in real life, but in photos it still looks beautiful. And it looks almost so very subtle, which is why a lot of makeup tutorials that I saw that channeled Marilyn Monroe did a very like simple cat eye and just false lashes and just left it at that. But it was so much more than that. It was a makeup look which completely looked so simple but was rich with so many tips and slight tricks that really made it that much more amazing. Of course, the use of contouring and highlighting to really enhance the three-dimensional look of Marilyn's face also transcended to her face makeup. And of course, Marilyn and Whitey did use a lot of like very subtle techniques to really just add dimension to her face, but nothing was overpowering, nothing was too fake looking. It was all meant to provide this like illusion of effortless glamour and sensuality that the image of Marilyn was so synonymous with. They had like a very light contour going on her cheekbones, and then also to emphasize her jawline and to just really make it pop, they applied a little bit of contour there as well. That of course went into the fact that Marilyn did have like that chin implant that wasn't altogether satisfactory for her, so they used contouring to correct that. They also used contouring for her nose in the sense that they applied contouring on either side of her nose, very similar to what we do today, but of course it was a lot softer and it was a lot more blended. Now blush back then was known as rouge, and it was applied very liberally on a lot of people, and it was basically used to just emphasize youth and emphasize beauty. And of course Marilyn used it on her cheek area, and she also used it above her brows, and this was meant to really just accentuate certain parts of her face. And she also used the blush on the tip of her nose as well.
The highlight of the makeup was in fact the highlighter. Every little bit of her face was analysed by Whitey. So highlighter was used around the sides of her nose to give this part of her face a much flatter, wider appearance. Also down the centre of her nose and into the centre of her forehead. You were really under the impression that her cheekbones were extremely high, her chin was extremely small, and she had this beautiful, wide open look around her eyes.
And when it comes to her lips, well, they were not as simple as you might think. They actually did use a lot of different steps to achieve and to fully maximize the look of her lips. They started off by using a very dark pencil around the contours of her lips, and her lips were slightly overlined, especially around this part of her lips.
So I'm starting with a slightly darker red lipstick first. I'm using this all around the edge and at the outer corners. Next I'm going in with a red very similar to the red that Marilyn wore most of the time. It really brightened her face a lot. But you're starting to get the three-dimensional effect here of the dark around the edge and the dark at the outer corner. Then they would have blotted the lips and started again, putting another layer on. Just close your mouth for me. So building up the layer. So not only was it a trick of the light with the different colours, but also the amount of product, the amount of lipstick that he got onto her lips really added a huge amount of fullness. One of the other tricks that Whitey used to do was to add a little bit of white powder just onto the centre of Marilyn's lower lip. So Whitey would often use layer upon layer, gloss, more white powder, more lipstick, more gloss, and you can imagine just by sheer volume of product, her lips would end up looking pretty amazing.
This was, of course, the look that Marilyn would wear when she was working, when she was at the studio. And a lot of these products, and a lot of her clothing in general, if we talk about fashion, was provided to her by the studio to really just promote this image. However, Marilyn in her private life was really quite a little bit different. There are pictures of her that have been released of her looking absolutely beautiful, wearing no makeup whatsoever. And there are photos of her makeup drawers and her makeup table, and the contents of a makeup drawer were actually auctioned off a few years ago, so we do have a little bit of insight into the makeup that she did like to use on an everyday basis when she didn't necessarily have to promote this like Marilyn type look. And as you can see, you have those lashes, you have an eyelash curler very similar to the ones that we use today, you have some earplugs, you have a matchbook from the Maisonette, which was a nightclub in the St. Regis Hotel in New York City. And by the way, those lashes are actually from this brand called Martha Lorraine. You have a gilded comb, some bobby pins, a little bit of eyeshadow, and that like sort of like blonde, sort of like ropey looking thing is actually some hair extensions. I honestly think that Marilyn is just one of those people that I would really like to go back in history and really get to know. Marilyn and the image that she portrayed is so very fascinating to me, because in the movies that she is in, you see her portraying this like very dumb blonde stereotype, but she was a businesswoman. She was one of the first women in Hollywood, probably the first, to come up with her own production company, which she titled Marilyn Monroe Productions. And she basically came up with that along with the photographer Milton Green, who she was very close to. And she had that. She was also a very well-read person. She loved to read. She had a lot of books in her home. And she was so much more than we got to see. And I actually would have loved to just go back in time and really get to know her, because I truly believe that she was taken from us so very soon, and I would have honestly loved to sort of get to know who she was as a person, because we really didn't get to see much of that. I could really talk about so much more when it comes to Marilyn, but I have a feeling that this video is already going to be very long as it is. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new and interesting today, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye guys.